Hey everybody, welcome to episode 2 of the Smith Lakers podcast. I've got a special guest for y'all today, especially if you love to fish. Now, the premise behind this, just for me, is the salt life versus the lake life. So I'm a salt life person who has discovered the lake life and just is like, lake life, hands down the best. But I was so excited to have you on. Richard, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name's Rich Kessinger. I grew up on Long Island, New York. My dad was in the fishing business, and I worked for him since I was like in my real early teens, just 13. And I worked there every summer. We carried up to 100 passengers every day, so it was chaotic most of the time. By the way, my nickname in high school was the Master Beta. So hey, but I did that growing up. We worked 7 days a week. I never really had a summer off, but we had a kind of a crazy life. Most of the kids in the family worked on the boat at some point or another. And later on, I met my wife, and we were dating, and I met her father. And the father, he knew me because he fished on my father's boat, so it was like karma. And he was a tugboat captain. And he asked me to ride with him one time, and I worked up in New York, and I got on the tugs myself, started in the engine room and worked my way up to the wheelhouse. And I became a captain at like 22 years old and worked for ExxonMobil. So I was very fortunate, yeah.
And traveled all over the place?
Yeah, I traveled. I worked the East Coast, New York Harbor, up to Maine, down south to Delaware. And then I got transferred to Baton Rouge and worked there on the Mississippi River. And then later in my career, a company saw something in me, and I was a manager for fleets of boats around the world. Norway. I worked in Angola, West Africa. I worked in Ghana, South America, as well as the United States. So it's been a pretty diverse background, and my whole family's in the maritime. I got nephews in New York that are police officers on the police boats. I've got Jean's, my wife's family was all tugboat guys. They got out of the army and went on tugboats, and so the whole family is pretty much a maritime.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I did it for 37 years.
And now you're living on Smith Lake.
Yes,
and
sir.
You catch big ass fish.
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, I didn't even know, I'm not much of a fisherman, obviously, but I didn't know there was fish that big in this lake.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, here's what I'm thinking, is that I know this for a fact, that the fresh water is much better on your boat engines.
Mm-hmm.
The salt water at the beach is very corrosive on everything, not just your boat, but your house.
All your fittings, everything.
Yeah. No jellyfish, no sharks.
Nope.
Have you ever seen an alligator in Smith Lake?
No, sir.
So
Now, alligator gar, which is a fish.
Yeah.
They got a big nose like I do, but
So all we really have to contend with up here is like water snakes.
Yeah, but on the water, usually if you're swimming near your boat, you just take your fishing pole and tap the water and they're gone, So
Yeah.
I've never had any issues with them as far as getting bitten or, Most of them are water snakes. They really don't want to bother you.
So to me, it's a more enjoyable. I mean, the water's clean.
The water's clean. One thing I like about lake fishing, you can pretty much fish year round. It depends how much cold you can tolerate. But then it's the weather, right? Even if it's windy, this lake has so many different canals and sloughs and stuff that you can go in and get out of the wind and fish, which I like. And you might get a foot at worst, the worst case. But man, it is offshore fishing. You can get your butt kicked in a heartbeat as soon as the wind starts kicking up. But due to all the land here, it blocks a lot of it out, except in the main channels like where we live now. Yeah.
Well, you still love to go fishing all over.
Oh, I was born into it. It's in my blood. The water's in my blood. We lived in Texas after Baton Rouge. We had bought a little cabin on the beach in Crystal Beach, and we were going to retire there. Unfortunately, a hurricane hit us, and we lost the house. So that's why we're here on Smith Lake. I just said, I'm not going to stay on the coast, because everybody's trying to get out when there's a storm and it's chaos. And, as you get older, you don't want to be doing that stuff. So I looked around the countryside and from like Texas up to Virginia, and Smith Lake was my first pick. And we came here for 5 days, stayed for 9 days, bought a house and didn't know anyone. Didn't know Saul, and I have so many friends here. So many.
A lot of you that you made through fishing, right?
Fishing. And I ran the rescue boat here on Smith Lake for 4 years, rescuing people with Towboat US. I did that. But then Exxon called me out of retirement to go down to Guyana, South America, so I had to leave, and I didn't go back because, you're on call all the time. So I had a lot of stuff when I was in my other career, so I'm good.
Well, and I wanted to talk about the hurricane that displaced you and led you to Smith Lake, because I get asked a lot by people about tornadoes. Mm-hmm. And they'll say, all right, well, hurricanes happen every year on the coast, but you get all this warning. And with tornadoes, you may or may not get warning.
Well, you'll know. They usually get a lot on your cell phones, but one thing about the hurricane thing, it's 2 weeks of drama with the media. They just, and then a lot of times it's nothing and people are freaking out. Where here, if there's a tornado, you hunker down. I have not seen one tornado where I live right here. There's some water, what I call a water spout, which is a smaller version. It may get a few docks here and there once in a while, but I've been here 13 years and I haven't had any incidents with tornadoes near my house here. So I know they had some in town back in 2008 and recently, more out in the countryside, because I think most tornadoes like flat.
Yeah.
We got a lot of hills and stuff here, and temperature too, right? It's cooler on the lake and the land's hotter. So.
Right. Well, I try to make that point with people too, because the topography here is it's not flat.
No, I like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because where we live is like the best of both worlds. You're on the lake, but then you drive out of here and you go into people's horse farms and cattle farms and that kind of stuff. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
It really is. And it's quiet. Off season here, it's so quiet you can't hear a pin drop.
Well,
amazing.
I've talked to a number of people that said like during the week they feel like the lake is theirs.
That's it. That's me. That's when I fish. If you see me out there in the week, it's because I haven't gone in a while. I really want to go fishing. But yeah,
they live for the week, not the weekend, because the weekend it can get pretty crazy out there.
Yeah, in the summer and holiday weekends and stuff like that. But yeah, you just kick back and watch them all go crazy out there.
Yeah, especially Labor Day, 4th of July, Memorial Weekend,
exactly.
All those holiday weekends.
Yeah, and then the wintertime, a lot of people aren't like me. We used to fish in snow on the East Coast and freezing out there. So, when it gets cold here, you just bundle up and go.
There has been some content, real estate agent content that I've seen like on social media that will making a pitch for the lake life over the salt life. And you'll see like no sharks. You'll see they'll have like T-shirts or stickers or just graphics they'll make. And I really feel like this is a thing.
Yeah. And you can always saltwater fish. I fish Alaska. I fish Nova Scotia. I've got 1,000-pound tunas up there. It's fantastic. Costa Rica. I fish all over the world. I even fished in Angola, West Africa on a weekend. My boss took me out fishing. So, yeah, you can do it, right? But again, saltwater is a lot more expensive than lake fishing because, like you said, there's wear and tear. And most people, I wouldn't go ashore more than 10 miles without 2 engines.
Right.
So you get double the gas, longer distances now because the water's more polluted off in certain areas. Even in Florida, with all the storms they've had, the fishing industry just tanked pretty much. Because my father was in it. We know a lot of guys lost their businesses, lost their boats. There's no more party boats down there like he had on the East Coast. And offshore fishing is dwindling in Florida. They got to run 30 to 50 miles to catch fish. So it's an expensive hobby if you have your own boat.
Yeah.
We're here. I catch 30-pound fish off my dock right here. You know that. We're going to do that tonight, by the way.
Yeah.
Hopefully we get some nice
hope
ones.
to get some footage of that to include, by the way.
Yeah.
But one thing I appreciate about it is that, where I'm from on the coast of Alabama, it is very flat. I always thought I would be a salt light person. I just never thought I would leave the beach. My wife's from North Alabama. And during the pandemic, she's like, let's go check.
Well, a great example, if you want saltwater fishing, you want to do it yourself, you've got to live on the coast. And look at all the hurricanes we've had. Florida, I'd love to go to Florida and fish, for tarpon or whatever, everything else offshore. But the thing is, it gets hit from every side on hurricanes. I'm sorry, just east side, west side comes up to south. They have really can't get out of them most of the time. So after losing my house, I said, I'm done.
What about insurance? On the coast, you got wind deductibles that are crazy.
I just have regular, that's it.
And a lot of people in Florida are self-insuring.
No, we don't have flood insurance here. I don't. Look how high up we are. It's like, if it floods up here, I got to build an ark.
Yeah. So
never say never, though, but they call me Noah, Captain Noah, instead of Captain Richard. But my good friends call me Dick for long.
That's awesome. So I'm thinking, in my mind, the only con that could really, here's another one. So it's going to get a little colder up here, and it may or may not snow.
I think it snowed like one time 7 inches in 13 years, and it was gone the next day. We had some flurries, which makes the ground a little white, and then it's gone that afternoon or the next morning. Yeah, it's good. We get the fronts that come through from up north, usually lasts a day or two. But we could be 32 one day and, 55 the next day. So it's
the only thing
I like to change the seasons. I'm used to that.
Well, that's what I was going to say is that, man, this to me, like if I think about coastal life, it really is a seasonal lifestyle. Here, you fish year round up here, even when it's cold.
Yeah, it depends. How cold is it and how windy it is, because you get the wind chill on top of that. And
some of these bass fishermen are crazy. They're going 60 miles an hour and 30-something.
Yeah, and they'll fish at night too. I rescued a guy one time. He was fishing up on Rock Creek, and he calls me, I'm broke down, so I'm going up there with the rescue boat, and I'm looking for the guy. I see a fire burning on the shoreline. I call him. I says, "Is that you over there with the fire?" He goes, yeah, dude, if you didn't come get me, I got 2 bass. I was going to cook them on the fire. So I said, you call, I haul. So I went and got them, took them home, but it was like 22 to 27 degrees out or something. I was like, man, I love fishing, but not that much.
Well, so Jeremy, a mutual friend of ours, went down to the beach with his family, a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't even swim in the water because of jellyfish. They all got stung. Yeah. To me, that's just, it's crazy. I don't know. Like we used to get.
But you can always visit the coast. I love the coast. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I love saltwater fishing, period. I do. And I love, why? Because you get bigger fish in saltwater than you can here. But the Lake Rected here, I think it's like 45 pounds. So that's my next venue to try to beat that. I've got a 35. And there's some 40s been caught. So hopefully before I go to the great beyond, sail is haven up there.
Well, one thing I know that we don't have is people always talk to me about the sound of the waves hitting the sand. Yeah. And of course, I'm going down to the beach this weekend. I can't wait to experience that. Yeah. But man.
Yeah. Look at Florida now. Everybody's moving south. So all those states are getting crowded. Now, you throw an electric vehicle because hopefully that's not an issue anymore. But could you imagine people trying to get out of Florida for hurricane and electric vehicles and backing up, can't charge your car, you're stranded on the highway. So I kind of said,
yeah.
Even the gas, same thing. You get people just panic out and it's chaos. No, thank you. I'll stay right here.
It's beautiful up here when the leaves start to turn.
Yep.
There's a lot of wildlife.
You like hunting?
Yeah.
Alabama's the place. You can do that, fishing, everything. Bird shoot, whatever you want to do.
And then the first summer that we came up here during COVID, I was just blown away because it'd be 85 during the day. We'd be out on the boat skiing, tubing, and then at night it would be cool enough to have a fire.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So I was like,
we get a lot of variance here in the temperature, and I like it because okay, and then next thing you know, you're barbecuing and you're not sweating your in-law off.
Yeah, and I just find the lake water is cooler than jumping in the Gulf in July.
Yeah, it gets to almost 90 in the summer surface temp, and of course we've got at my dock here, I've got 100 feet of water at pool. So. But this spot's in here 250, 300, depending on where the lake is at level-wise. And the water's always flushing out of here, too. That's another point about pollution is we got the dam, right? So they use the water outflow for Alabama Power. And there's no industry on the lake either, which is another plus here. There's no. I fish Pickwick Lake. They got the lumber mill and the pulp mill, and it's all day you're smelling that stuff, and it's just disgusting. I said, I'll never come back here again. But here, there's no industry at all, other than marinas and, some places to eat. It's really kind of cool.
Well, yeah, it's like that, like the Coosa River. There's a bunch of industry there. I mean, stuff that flows from Mobile Bay into the Gulf of Mexico, where I'm from, it's atrocious.
Yeah.
But then, we had the oil spill, and they put all that stuff that breaks up the oil in the water.
Well, people need to be educated before they come on any waterways, because I've seen a lot of bad stuff happen here just because people aren't educated or they don't understand being on the right side, why that's important, and pollution stuff, throwing stuff over the side, carry a trash bag, put it in, take it when you get off the boat. Is that so difficult? Or they don't tie stuff on their dock. We get some wind come in and all the stuff blows in the lake and you find all this stuff floating around once in a while, but it's a clean lake. It really is. But people need to, stick to the rules.
Hey, before we take a break, I wanted to ask you, made me think about something. The fact that the lake is dry, if you go deep sea fishing out of Orange Beach, Destin, Baton Rouge, wherever, or Bouchon, where all that stuff. I mean, you're going to have a big cooler ice down full of beer. Right, you really shouldn't be doing that because it's illegal on the lake right here.
That's correct.
Do you feel that it makes the lake safer?
Here's how I view it. There's certain people that are going to abuse it. You shouldn't get pulled over just because to do a search. But if you're doing something really silly or stupid, or you're not following the rules, or you're acting crazy, and you get pulled over, and the officer suspects for cause, as they say, they suspect that you had some drinks, and they should have the right to look in your boat. But just to do it to make $350 a beer can, it doesn't make sense.
Is that the
that's the last rate I heard.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's a money maker. I would rather see them pull people over for running. I seen kids the other night. It's just getting dark, running jet skis, no running lights. Little young kids. I don't think he was 12. It's not good. People on the wrong side. Real close to docks where if somebody's swimming, they don't see him, or a boat pulls out and doesn't look, T-bone. So that kind of stuff. I'd rather see them do more of the safety stuff and pulling people up to see if they got a life jacket or.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then on the other side, we're going to talk fishing.
Okay.
All right. So what you have a bay boat that you fish out of? Is that what you call it?
Yeah, a lot of guys are bringing big boats in here. I don't think it's necessary because when it's windy, unless you have the spot thing where you hold it into the wind or something, it's okay. But they throw a bigger wake. They do more erosion damage. You can't fish in the tighter spots if you want to. So, but there's twin screws here. There's a lot of ocean boats here now that you run offshore with 2 engines with. I think it's overkill. You burn a lot of gas for nothing because sometimes I'm fishing right in front of my house and going that way, wherever the fish are. I mean, the most I have to run is 15 minutes, 20 minutes, where if you go offshore, you're lucky you get out the canal by 15 minutes.
Right.
Yeah.
But you troll. This is one thing that was, when we first started talking about this, I don't know how long ago it was, but you were saying that you trolled for fish. I was like, holy shit, I thought that was just a saltwater thing.
No.
Are there a lot of people trolling out here?
They do, more so in the summertime, because what happens, the surface temp is so hot. So, like, if you put live bait in your live well, you have to have cold water in it. So, if you put 85, 90-degree water in it, all your bait's going to die. So, you have to have a way to keep it cool. And bait's expensive. It's hard to get unless you're good with a cast, not to catch the herring. But when you do, they don't last long. Herring are great in the water. They're like missiles. You see them darting around really fast, but you take them out of the water and you start touching them, they're toast. Yeah. So shad are a little bit stronger. Shiners are a little bit stronger than that as far as lasting, So in the summer, you'll see more guys trolling because the fish go deep, 60 foot, 50 foot. I've seen fish try 100 feet the other day. So you never know, where they're going to be at. But the bait will stay down in the summer because it's cold. It's hot on the surface.
So you're just not one of these traditional bass fishermen that's fishing against the shore.
It depends what time of year. I like to bait fish, live bait fish. So like doing that, you can catch bass, you can catch striper, catfish, crappie if they're in the area, but I don't fish for them as much. Anything else, that hits your line. But trolling, you could get spotted bass and stripe. And I catch big stripe trolling sometimes. Usually in the summer, I do it.
Yeah.
But I fish off my dock at night, which we'll do tonight. Fish live bait off the dock, and we got lures if we see fish on top, or we can jig next to the light. I have a submerged light. So
yeah, so we stopped.
It's getting the feel. If you're a fisherman, you're going to figure it out. Everybody said, "How do you do it? How do you do it?" I said, "Well, 30-something years of experience." I said, then you'll be in my spot the next day. I've done that before. You share information. There's 8 boats where you were fishing the day before, and you're like, "Geez," because then they hit one guy, tells another guy, tells another guy, tells another one, and so I just do my own thing.
Yeah.
I hate to be like that, but people are just, they'll use you for what you know, and then they're gone. Just like,
yeah.
See ya. Thanks, man. They don't even say thanks. They just adios. MF.
Well, I've been over here several times. We've really enjoyed some smoked fish. I've still yet to have the smoked fish dip. So I'm really yearning for that. But, it is good tasting fish. Is there anything you would say about, the taste of it? Like,
the fish here, especially like catfish and the bass, the fillets are really nice and white. Most of the cat have no slime at all. Like you catch catfish in Louisiana, man, they're full of slime and yuck. It's all over your boat. Here, they don't have it. And you fillet them and it's just almost like flounder. The striper have the bloodline in the middle, but if you brine them overnight, it kills that, or you can cut it out. And I've made, out of striper, I've made ceviche, I've made fried fish, I've done the smoked fish, I've done whole fish on the grill. So the options are endless, really.
Can you explain the brining process just a little bit for us?
Yeah, I just take the fish fillets and I'll put them in a pan or a basin, if you will, fill it 50% salt water and 50% brown sugar. So I think it's a cup per gallon. So 3 gallons, you put 3 cups of salt and then 3 cups of brown sugar. Mix it all up, lay the fillets in there overnight, take them out the next day, pat them down, and then you can put a dry rub on it, right on the grill, skin down. I don't even take the scales off because as it's cooking, the skin gets crispy. Put it on your plate and just eat right off the skin.
Yeah.
I'm going to do that. Actually, one of my friends was having a party on Saturday. He was fishing with me the other night. We had 2 stripe about that big and cleaned them up. So hook to cook, baby.
So I have, in real estate, I've got some buyers, that I'm working with, and I've got some folks that are originally from upstate New York, but they were asking me about fishing, and I was like, I got to introduce you to Rich. But what would be your advice for them? Let's say they don't have anywhere close to your experience with fishing. What would be your advice? Just like get that green light start fishing off your dock, kind of get?
It depends where you're at. If you're in a shallower area, the light's going to help somewhat. But in the summer, when the water warms up, you won't get any action because the fish are going to go deeper. So I'm fortunate I bought here in the deep channel. So deep channel, I would recommend if that's what you want to do. If not, if you're in a shallow, you like to home in this water's a little shallow, you'll catch bass and stuff like that. You might get some striper in the winter when the water cools down. However, you got to make that choice. And we do get more boats here, traffic, but when in the off season, I love it.
Yeah. Off season or
when you can catch a 30-pound fish off your dock, it's like hello.
That's
and you can hang out and have a beer with the boys and the girls. And actually, we got some company tonight. Our friends are coming over, so we're going to sit down there and put some lines out and put some live bait out and hang out.
It's a really good time.
My buddy Johnny has got this little pole with a little float on it, and it shoots a beam down and it tells you if there's fish under the dock. It's like he gets a little screen and
oh my gosh, we're gonna learn a lot tonight. That's awesome.
I don't have that. I'm fishing. If they're there, if they're not, the bait was there the other night. We were catching bait like crazy. So,
well, I think like in the next segment, I want to talk about just kind of life on the lake and your experience with living on the lake. But I mean, I just think just in what we've discussed so far, I think we've made a pretty good case for somebody if they are maybe getting a little worn out by the constant hurricane season. Such a great point she brought up that like there's just so much drama, so much build.
Oh, it's just killer. When we lived in Texas, man, it was like Houston flooded a couple of times while we lived there for 10 years. It's like I couldn't wait. I had to go there for work. I couldn't wait to get out of there. To be honest with you. Yeah, it was a grooming thing. Then I went overseas. So.
Well, and it's just it doesn't seem like there is a high wind factor that you have to contend with living here.
Yeah.
But it's not a big deal. I mean, it's not like...
Yeah, and it's not as much convenience as you have in the cities or in town. But the trade-off for me is I like my peace and quiet. I like my fishing. I love the view here. I love the lake. Community's great. I've been in, people know that, like yourself, I catch fish. I've been in Smith Lake Living magazine, I think 3 times because I'm a woodworker also, and I play guitar. And so I keep myself busy in retirement. I don't stop, but so they're very accepting. And Eddie Hand, who has Smith Lake Living, he's a great guy, and his wife, good people.
Yeah. Oh, I know one thing I wanted to ask you about. So this is a real thing that I think you really don't have to contend with living on a salty coast. But after it storms here...
Oh, I did that, man. Between the salt, the sand blowing and eroding your house away and all the paint and rust and... Believe me, it's a lot of maintenance. Not the lake home isn't, but it's not as bad as a saltwater home. I'm sorry. Hands down, it's easier. After
a storm, you're going to get a lot of sticks and logs and things in the water.
In the lake, yeah, but it flushes out, and a lot of lumber will sink, but you got 300 feet of water, so 200 feet of water, whatever. And, but they have cleanup crews here a couple times a year. They go out and clean up the different counties. But we wouldn't have to do that if people were just responsible for their crap.
Yeah.
It just aggravates me. They have islands on this lake. I take my pontoon with the dogs, nudge in there, and you go there and there's a pile of trash for some kids who are hanging out partying and left all that crap there. And that's just wrong. So when the water comes up, if nobody cleans it up, it's going to wash in the lake. So, plastic is like the biggest enemy of any waterway,
right?
Because it doesn't disintegrate. It just stays forever. You can live with a beer can sinking or, glass, but plastic's no good for a lot of reasons.
Well, if you're a dummy like me, so when was
I don't even put fertilizer on my lawn, okay? I don't care. I'd rather have a green lake than a green lawn, you know what I'm saying? It's like...
True.
Because what's happening in Houston, we lived there, Lake Houston there. There was so much nitrates going in when the lake dropped down and they had a drought. I was driving on the road and the freaking grass was higher out of the lake than it was the road. It's like they need to get a team in there with some machetes because all nitrogen, just all this growth started and when the water went out. It's like crazy.
Yeah, and we're the cleanest lake in Alabama, the 3rd cleanest in the nation. So
that's what drew me here too. At the time, I bought here 13 years ago, so of course the prices were a lot more reasonable in my zone. Now, if I had to buy this house, I couldn't afford it.
Yeah,
but hey, it worked out.
Yeah, it sure
really did.
Well, so last Labor Day, I knew there was just like this traditional big log that it never moves. It's always in the same place. It always sticks out of the water. But lake level was elevated. I think it was either 4th of July or Labor Day. I can't remember. But I hit it and knocked the engine off the bottom of my boat.
This lake It's pretty hard to go around. Now you can hit a log at night. I don't like to run at night. I do, but a lot of these basketballs doing 60, 70,
And I never see them with like spotlights or anything.
Yeah, and you'll get written up for that too. They don't like you running with your headlights on, but you know what? It's better than tearing up your engine or your prop or lower unit, if you hit something. That's just when it's flooding, though. There's not trees floating here all the time. As you know, when we get a heavy rain, then some of it washes out. You just have to watch it. So.
And a lot of people, it burns good. When it dries out, that driftwood burns good. They'll use it to decorate their house or their lawns with or whatever. Use it for art or something. I don't know. Mm-hmm. It's just a consistent thing that just happens after it rains.
Yeah, people need to. In general, people need to be more respectful of other people's property, of their boating. I get a lot of times I'm out there fishing. These jet skis are ripping around me, or these big boats are coming by, rocking the crap out of me. If you see a guy fishing, you don't have to come right next to him. Just go out a little way. They'll slow down. Be courteous, right? You see kids in the water, slow down. It's just a learning curve. But some people you can teach them, but they still go back to their old bad habits.
Right.
And that's what happens. People get in trouble.
All right, we're going to take another break. We'll be right back. On the other side, we're going to talk about just kind of Smith Lake life in general. You've been here 13 years. I saw we have another mutual friend who has a fiance, I guess, that moved down from New York a while back.
Yeah, she's a Jersey girl.
Jersey.
Yeah.
Well, she made a post. It was like an anniversary post. And she was like, best decision I ever made moving to Alabama. And then, or she's like, I don't regret it. And Jeannie commented on there. She's like,
You talk about a small world.
Yeah.
She moved down here. We're members of the Elks Club. And we met there. And she's younger, in the 40s, I guess she is. I met him, talked to him 3 times. They asked me to marry him. They're getting married July 19th. They want me to be the preacher. I said, hey, I'm just a captain. I'm not a priest. But they said, Alabama, you don't have to. You just do the ceremony, and they have to fill out a form, and they get their marriage certificate. So I'm going to be their preacher, and I'm going to play my guitar when they come in the church.
Oh, my God, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, your wife made a comment on that post, just like, best decision you probably ever made, something to that effect. So I just assuming that she's enjoyed her 13 years.
Absolutely. There's a lot of activities, a lot of groups you can join. She's a big seamstress quilter, and she that's her passion. She's up there right now sewing upstairs. But she's in the quilt guild. They travel and do things. There's all kinds of different groups. You do artisans like myself. I'm a wood turner, so I do craft shows in town, twice a year. So there's a lot of things to do here. You may have to drive a little further, but she's in the All the Women's Club, which they're a fundraising group for the town. It's a small town, and they'll raise money through auctions, to Christmas parties. They do big auctions and stuff. And it's really a great community that way. And a lot of people here are very religious, which is a good thing. You don't see that too much anymore. I think per capita, we have the most churches in the countryside, Alabama. So
yeah.
Well, my buddies in New York, Kessinger, what are you doing down there in Alabama? And then they come to visit and go, holy shit, this is nice, man. Shh,
exactly.
Be quiet.
Well, AL.com just put out an article. I hadn't had a chance to read it, but it was just talking about how Alabama is one of the top states where people are moving to.
Yep. We're mostly conservative here, and, you see what's going on in the world today, and I appreciate that. I really do. I'm not going to go into politics for sure, but I've been all around this world, and what I see in America today, I just want to throw up. It's a great community, good friends, hometown feel. It's growing like every other place, but you still have the hometown feel. And if you're looking for convenience, I would say this is not the place for you.
Low taxes, low cost of living. Yeah. People talk to me all the time about what it costs to put a tank, fill their car up with a tank of gas, and it's just gotten ridiculous. They talk to me about crime. They don't feel safe where they live.
Yeah, and here we can carry. So you want to carry.
Oh my gosh! Yeah. My buyer from Maryland made me take him to a gun store because he wanted to look at the gun store owner.
Oh, we got plenty of those. There's some good ones too.
And say, hey, can I? What's allowed, what's not allowed. And
actually, my neighbor down the street, he has a lot of property on the other side where the home off the lakeside, and we have a little shooting range there, and it's natural. It's a natural bluff, probably about 25 feet high, but 3 sides. So we can target shoot over there, have a good time, just practice and teach people how to use a gun, and if you need to, but so far here.
He came out of that gun shop smiling. He's like, yeah, thumbs up.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the biggest thing people talk to me about a lot of times is weather and snow, and just wanting to be.
Yeah, as you get older, you don't want to be shoveling snow and driving in it and all that. And a lot of people here, if you get a hint of a flurry, the town shuts down. Oh, no school today. We're shutting our businesses down because they're not used to it.
Well, I've got a buyer from Nashville, Tennessee that has been looking to move to the town that I'm from, Fairhope, Alabama. And that's where I've been sending her listings and all that. And I just asked her the other day, I was like, hey, have you ever thought about Smith Lake? And she's like, I've heard a little bit about it. I mean, typically people from Nashville have heard about Smith Lake.
Yeah, it's only 3 hours from Nashville. So,
but she wasn't real familiar with it. So I sent her some listings, and she was like, she may come down next weekend to look. But I was telling her, like, Mobile Bay is like very polluted. When you walk outside in August in Fairhope, you immediately get damp. It's so humid. And it gets humid up here too, but
yeah, you could jump in a lake.
Yeah, jump in the lake. But yeah, like you said, you'll have some summers are hotter than others. That first summer we experienced, it was a little bit of a downer because somebody told me, it's not like that every summer, Jason. And I was like, son of a bitch.
And here's another plus. Most places, unless you have gazillions money, where you have your own dock, like in Florida and stuff. But here, most houses come with a boat dock. So you basically walking from your house to the dock, fish off the dock, or go out in your boat, and it's right there. There's a couple of marinas here that sell fuel, so that's convenient. You have to trail your boat anywhere. Some people do if they're bass fishing. Those are usually the visitors, but that's what I find most convenient. Now we're located pretty close to a marina right here, so if I got to do repairs or anything, sometimes they'll pick the boat up for you. Towboat US, if you got that, they'll come do a dock-to-dock tow.
So they have
which means, in other words, if your boat's broke down and you slip, they'll tow it to whatever marina you want to get it fixed at.
Well, this buyer was asking me, because I think, what they were looking for was like the social aspect of it, like moving to Fairhope, Alabama, and what she knew about Smith Lake was very little. But what she did know, and she made a comment on it, she's like, I just don't know if that's too rural for us. But you've already talked about all the different organizations and groups.
Yeah, and you got to have some hobbies when you retire. If you're going to sit in a chair all day, you're just going to, even though it's quiet and peaceful, you got to keep moving. And, either I'm fishing and playing my guitar, or we're going to town for dinner, or meeting friends. Jean's birthday's Friday. We have a bunch of people getting together at one of the local restaurants, and it's that kind of thing. You make friends here, and you do things together. It's simple as that. Well, that's how we met through another friend, right?
Yeah. And so how far are you from town? You're in Crane Hill right here.
Okay, you can 15 minutes down the road. We have a Chevron station that sells a lot. It's like a mini hardware store, and it's got some food, and it's got the essential stuff that you might need, like milk and eggs and stuff like that, and chips and stuff like that. They even have some bait. And then 30 minutes from here, there's a supermarket. It's called S&S in Dodge City. We love their meats because all their meats are local farmed cuts, and there's no preservatives, no crap in them. My wife will make a steak. I go, you got that from S&S. How did you know? Because the hamburger meat, everything. You can tell the chicken's different. So, and it's really good. And then another 15 minutes, you're in town for anything you want. They have, your Lowe's, your Home Depots, everything. Restaurants, hospitals, great medical care, So
lots of live music.
Yes.
And lots of places have live
music. Yep. Bands, like Rhode Island Microbrewery. They have live bands Fridays and Saturdays, sometimes during the week. They do competitions, karaoke. I was in an amateur guitar thing, and it was a lot of fun.
Trident does live music every week.
Trident has bands. Yeah, Trident Marina. That's for me, it's only 12 minutes. So we can drive to Trident in 12 minutes, or I can take my boat and take a slow cruise. It's about 10 miles. And we usually do that. And you can dock at the marina and get you something to eat, drinks, beer, whatever you want, mixed drinks, and they do a pretty good job.
Great festivals.
Mm-hmm.
Strawberry Fest, they do Oktoberfest, the Christmas
You got
market.
The Jazz Festival coming up this summer.
Wow.
Rock the South.
Yeah, Rock the South.
Rock the South.
Yeah, Rock the South. I totally forgot about
Stapleton was here last year, I think. Chris Stapleton.
Yeah, it was awesome.
A lot of fairs. They do Oktoberfest. They do a lot of fairs in town you could go to. Kids love it,
But the Elks Lodge, a lot of people make friends.
Yeah, you got Elks Lodge, Moose Lodge. They go, a lot of things to do there, and they make trips together sometimes.
And then if you care anything about I just love the fact you're close to Nashville, obviously close to.
Yeah, you're an hour from Huntsville Airport. I call it a little over an hour and 10. About an hour to Birmingham Airport. So this is where we're at. It's like the hub. You got like here and here to two airports. So you have your choice where you want to fly out of.
Well, the first lake.
You're 3 hours from Atlanta. You're 3 hours from Nashville. Memphis, I think, is about 4.
Yeah. New Orleans is like what?
I made that New Orleans at 5.5.
So, yeah. I mean, you're really close to
And there's a train. There's a train that runs out of Birmingham and goes to New Orleans. It's about a 7-hour trip, but you can bring your drinks on there. We bought cooler with sandwiches and some beers and stuff, and took the ride in, and got a cab to the hotel, and rocked on.
I've never done that. I've always wanted to do that train trip.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, so location-wise, you're just very, very central, and it's an easy drive to a lot of places. Our friend Jeremy is going with another one of our friends who does this boat trip every year from Lake Gunnersville to Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of boats that go.
Yeah, they do a parade up there, yeah.
Yeah, and then do you ever do any of the stuff that's on the lake, like the poker run? And
yes, the poker runs, they're fundraisers. Yep, we've done that before. Yep.
So there's really a lot to do year round.
Mm-hmm.
You could say, because there's a lot of these crazy bastards out here fishing when it's freezing ass cold.
Well, that's when you go to Florida and go fishing, or you go down, you're only 5 or 6 hours to the Gulf, depending where you're going. Orange Beach or Destin's probably like 6.
There's hunting clubs to join.
Pensacola.
But yeah, I see these signs for hunting clubs everywhere. So you could, if you're a hunter, you could hunt in the winter and
that's correct.
Fish in the summer. But a lot of these crazy bastards are fishing in the winter. I don't know about all that. That's a little dumb.
Must be the home life. I gotta go fishing, man. I'm out of here. See you later.
Because I'm freezing my ass off on the bank, like shooting content, watching them go by. Like, how are they doing that? But they're like all zipped up. You can just see like this of their face sticking out.
Yeah, they got their zoot suits on,
I think you've really provided some great information for people that are looking to maybe start to look other places besides a salty coast.
Yeah, because Florida's gotten expensive too. My brother said there's so many houses on the market there too, because right now everybody's uncertain. I think that's why the market's kind of slow, but it's going to be picking up here, I think, in the next.
There's a lot of people, insurance is a problem in Florida.
Oh, yeah.
It's getting to be worse and worse and worse every year.
Yeah.
And so, Florida may become a place where it's like the ultra rich who can afford to self-insure. It's like their playground.
Yeah.
A lot of folks are going to be,
I've been here 13 years and never had a claim.
Yes. I don't know if you've really mentioned any really big deterrents.
Hey, we didn't know anybody when we moved here, and I got more friends than I think I've ever had. Had lots of opportunities, fishing wise, guitar wise, craft wise. It just made something for one of the local health spas. Lots of health spas here. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Coleman's got a lot of spas.
Yeah, and Coleman was a lot of people don't know this. Coleman's got great schools, great school district. It was recognized by USA Today as, I think it was like top number 3 in terms of small towns with vibrant cultural scenes.
Mm-hmm. I like the hometown feel.
Yeah.
Like I say, it's growing, but it's still kind of holding it. You know what I mean? Everybody hugs each other, other people, the other places, it's like they look at you in the face,
There's a lot of people that I feel like are just very proud of Coleman.
Yeah.
Are proud of Smith Lake and just proud of where they live. And, it means a lot to them.
Yeah.
So that's a cool place. And it's very accepting. I've got a buyer from New Jersey, buyers from Maryland that are originally from New York. Worked with a buyer last week from Ohio. They're coming down here.
Yeah, and Tennessee's a big one too, because property in Tennessee lakes are much higher. The taxes are much higher. So the people that live in Tennessee, they're coming here, and they're only 2-3 hours away, depending where they live.
And we get people from
we can make it to Nashville under 3 hours,
which I love.
Yeah.
I go up there and see a show.
Concerts, yep. You can hit the strip, stay over.
Go to an NFL game, go to Tennessee Titans.
Or stay outside of Nashville. It's a little bit cheaper hotel-wise, but man, there's good restaurants there, and.
Well, real quick, I don't think this is one of your things, but it's one of the things I've come to appreciate, although I don't get to take advantage of it as often as I'd like to. But Bankhead National Forest, if you like to hike.
Yeah, waterfalls. When it rains here, going up the lake, up Clear Creek, there's waterfalls everywhere. We've nudged in there with a pontoon boat. It was a real narrow one, and it was just gushing down. Me and the wife sat there having lunch. We had the dogs in there kind of going like this. Wow, that's pretty cool,
Wow. Yeah, I really want to do that. I've not got a chance
hiking, to do that. Cruising up the lake. I've run 30 miles up to the north end of the lake here, and they got a lakeshore marina up there, and they got a bar and eats, and it's pretty good. There's a lot of people that live in the country that are my friends. I'll say, come on, we'll go up to take a 30-mile hike today. And we'll go up Betty Piles in the pontoon, and we go up north. It's about it has to be about an hour and a half, 2 hours. I usually stop along the way because there's so many rock formations. The kids jump off of them, and just the whole scenery here is gorgeous. Especially when it's green and in the fall. After in the winter, everything, it's just the evergreens stay green. But
yeah,
it's a different world. The lake looks totally different in the seasons, which is kind of cool too.
it's beautiful.
Yeah, like now everything's green. God. All my trees are in bloom. I can't see my neighbors, which is some privacy factor, which is nice. They don't want to see me running around with no clothes on outside. Holy mackerel, there's Dick Furlong running down the deck.
Well, gosh, I mean, I feel like we could go on and on and on, but because you just keep bringing up new stuff that I think about. But there's another thing too, where you could it's pretty common for somebody to be on a few acres.
Oh yeah.
And to be totally isolated.
Yeah.
And have chickens and goats and
Oh yeah.
kind of the farm life, a big garden.
Yep.
And a lake house.
Yep.
So, oh gosh. Well, I hope I piqued your interest, Richard. Thank you so much for doing this with us.
Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Thanks, everybody.
We're going fishing. So if you're going to catch us on YouTube, you may get some fishing footage. So keep watching if you're on YouTube. If you're on Apple Podcasts, hey, please be sure to follow this show if you're interested in Smith Lake life. If you've gotten something out of this episode, give me a like, give me a review, rate this thing. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much. And we'll see you guys in the next episode.
Remember, old fishermen never die. They just can't raise their rod. And tugboat captains push harder.
Love it. Thanks, Richard.
See you.